Everybody out there on Facebook, this is Scott Duffy. I am the co-host of Business and Burgers. I'm here with Entrepreneur Magazine today. We're in Phoenix, Arizona at the Meltdown in the Desert Conference, which is sponsored by Microsoft, our friends at Microsoft and Ryan Tech. And we are here with an amazing guest. Also, before we get to Tom, I do want to mention Kolby, Kolibas, who's done an amazing job putting together the Meltdown Conference. If you're here, if you're in Phoenix, come down and see us. We're here today, we're here tomorrow. Again, Meltdown in the Desert. You can find us online, Meltdown in the Desert. But what I'd really like to do right now is I'd like to introduce a very special guest, Tom Bilyeu. So Tom is like, first of all, it's just killer to be here with you because Tom, yeah. So we have a lot of health and fitness and nutrition people that are in the room, and what many of you will probably know Tom for is being the co-founder of Quest Nutrition. And I just got to ask you, first of all, I've read so much about Quest. I eat Quest bars every day. We're going to talk about that in a second when we talk about habits. But where did the idea from Quest Nutrition come from?
Well, Quest, to be honest, really was something born of misery. So my partners and I had a technology company. We were making money, winning awards, and we were completely miserable. And we decided we wanted to do something that was based on adding value. It was based on finding something we were passionate about, that we had a deep personal connection to it. And for three very different reasons, we decided to get into nutrition. For me, I grew up in a morbidly obese family, so it really was wanting to save my mom and my sister, if I'm completely honest. And they were struggling very profoundly with food, and I knew I was going to lose them far too early because of that. And also, when people get into that kind of position, oftentimes it comes with depression. My sister was really struggling with that, and so wanted to take a no BS look at what it would take to solve that problem. And my business partner and I had a conversation about what the no BS answer is to the global pandemic of ill health. And the answer that we came up with was you had to make food that people could choose based on taste, and it happened to be good for you. And so originally, we actually had that idea about 9 years before we founded the company, and we laughed it off and said, that's way too hard, we're never going to do it. And as we went down the road of building a technology company that didn't really make us feel alive, we decided to come back to that. And it was like, no matter how hard it might be, because it makes us feel alive, and because we really believe in it, because we think it's such a massive global problem, let's do it. And so we put value at the forefront, stopped thinking about money. I mean, it was a really big transition for us. And ended up being just beautiful and amazing and wildly successful.
So you came from one industry and then you got into nutrition, into food and nutrition. Did you know anything about food and nutrition?
My business partner did, in fairness. So he is just a nutritional mastermind. What he knows about human metabolism, nutrition in general, it was astonishing. And even back at our software company, we were always talking about nutrition. And he was bringing new studies in and things that he had tried anecdotally. And so we would start trying it. And I ended up losing about 60 pounds even before we founded the company.
Wow.
Based on all of those principles. So it was like, he's really on to something. He really understands this stuff and is so passionate about it. And when you're looking for partners, one thing, any entrepreneurs out there listening, find a partner who they're going to do that thing whether they're getting paid or not. And so he was just obsessively like going down that path, thinking about it. And same for me on the marketing side. I was really frustrated with the way that marketing was being done, where people were having to reinvent themselves every day, and could see that social media was going to become something. And so I started really investing in that. And this is back in 2009, before anybody thought social media was going to be powerful for business. And so that's really like what happened for us was we understood social media before anybody else, and we had a product that was metabolically real. And so when people ask, like, you know, what was it that led to your success, or, you know, how can we replicate it? At the end of the day, make sure your product is real, and then now in a hyper-connected social world, build community.
You talked about having a partner. Did you have one partner or did you have multiple partners?
No, there were three of us. And so my third partner was the process ninja. I mean, this guy's unbelievable. And when I think about what allowed us to really pop, it was being our own manufacturer, which so few people do. And because we did that, we were able to engineer our own equipment and make products that just had never existed before.
What do you think are 2 or 3 of the most important things that an entrepreneur needs to do when choosing their business partners?
you really have to choose like it's a marriage. So it's got to be somebody that you complement each other's skill sets. So if you both are sort of the visionary leader type, you're going to end up conflicting because there's just going to be things you disagree on. And if you agree on everything, one of you is unnecessary. Sure. So you actually want there to be some ideological friction, but you want it to be people that are really in two different positions. So my wife and I co-founded our new company, Impact Theory, and the way we think about it is you need one alpha and you need one beta. But the way that we think about beta is the way that wolves think about betas. So we saw this amazing documentary. Literally, it changed the way that my wife and I talk about our dynamic, because the alpha isn't always the biggest and the strongest. It's the decision maker. But the beta is the protector. The beta facilitates. So if you think of the beta as like operations and the alpha as the visionary, like that, you need both of those skills. And the visionary is going to fall down if they don't have somebody that can help them execute. And the executor, who's usually very risk averse, is never going to take advantage of those business opportunities because they just don't think of it that way. So my partner used to refer to it as the kite and the string. So you need a kite, but the only way that a kite works is if it's attached to a strong string. So you need both.
So what's interesting to me is how you've been so inspired by film, whether it's documentary, right, or it's movies. Now, one of the things I know about you is that you found inspiration in the movie The Matrix. So you gotta share with everybody, like, how did that happen?
Sure. So The Matrix changed my life. I mean, literally has come to define my ideology about the world. I think it's the perfect metaphor for the human condition. So we all pull a web of lies over our own eyes, limiting beliefs, things that you think are impossible, and because you think they're impossible, and humans lead with belief, if you don't have the belief, you'll never take the first step. And so once I realized, seeing the movie, that it was about that moment of awakening, of realizing that you're capable of becoming anything. It doesn't mean that you already have the gifts and the talents that you need to execute against it, which is why Neo falls the first time he tries to do the jump, which I love that about that movie.
That's the most killer scene.
Yeah. It's perfect, right? Because that's what it's like. You wake up and realize, okay, wait, I can do these things, but first you have to learn your kung fu. And so I began to think, okay, what is my kung fu? Okay, my kung fu's business. All right, so if my kung fu's business, then what's my version of jacking into the Matrix to learn really fast? And the answer for me was reading. So, and especially when I found Audible, and I can listen and assimilate oral information much faster than written. So I'm a very painfully slow reader, but I can assimilate spoken word very fast. So I listened to Audible at 3x, and it literally being able to read that much that fast changed my life. And so...
Okay, so say in your business, you're cruising along and there's like a glitch in the matrix, right? Something doesn't go right. What are 2 or 3 pieces of advice you give to our viewers about problem solving, but particularly in a fast-growing organization?
Yeah, so first you have to believe that it's possible, right? So grit is one of the most important. In fact, I'll say it's one of the 3 things that I look for when I'm hiring employees. Grit is one of the just 3 pillars. Because inevitably, it's a process. You're going to have to figure it out. So your first solution oftentimes isn't going to work. And the way that I define the difference between an employee and an entrepreneur, whether you're a linchpin employee or you actually own the company, to me is irrelevant. Like the title entrepreneur has really taken a much bigger persona than maybe originally intended. But the difference between somebody with an employee mindset and an entrepreneur's mindset is when you hit an obstacle, if you are like grateful for that and you relax because, well, it's impossible, I can't go any farther, that's an employee mindset. If when you hit that obstacle you get pissed because you know you're going to either go over it, around it, under it, through it, but it actually never occurs to you to stop, that's an entrepreneur's mindset. And so now through that process, like, how do you actually figure that problem out? And that's, I mean, you're sort of getting into what makes for a great entrepreneur, somebody that can actually go, okay, what's my goal, and then back into the steps of execution. So that was not easy to explain, like in a really sort of brief nutshell, but that's getting really good at that. And I'll say, if you haven't already read Angela Duckworth's book, Grit, read it immediately. That book is transformational.
Awesome book, totally awesome book. Now, it would take grit to grow a company at 100% a year. It would take grit to grow a company at 5,000% a year. Now, if I understand correctly, you guys were growing at like 50,000% over a short period of time. Crazy.
57,000, but who's counting, right?
57,000%. So, okay, when your hair is on fire and your company is growing that fast, what are 2 or 3 mistakes that you think entrepreneurs make, maybe that you guys made, and how can our audience help to avoid those?
Well, the big one is just knowing when you're growing that fast, the organization is going to evolve. So in the beginning, you're hiring people essentially just for grit. Yeah. So you're looking for people, they're willing to get their hands dirty, get in there, just grind it out. The guys that are going to be there at 2 a.m. with you on a Friday night instead of going to the club, they're double down, covered in, the chocolate chip cookie dough bar and just rocking it out, not complaining, just real grinders. And then you realize at some point we're becoming a professional organization that as much as we want to stay flat, about the time you have 1,000 employees, it's just not possible. And you end up, people are very disgruntled because they need to see what their path is through the company. They need to know how they grow. They need to know what that career path is. And so, and I'll take this 100% on myself, I was too slow to recognize when the transition happened. And so we really had people that were amazing in phase 1, and they just didn't make sense in phase 2. But because
did you find it hard to let go of those people?
100%. Yeah. And building a culture the way that we did, which was people first, and really getting to know them and connecting with them and working side by side to realize and now I just need somebody that really knows their job. And the problem is isn't even necessarily that you have to get rid of them, but they have to be okay with you bringing someone over them. And that is a very hard thing for most people to handle.
And I think that so many entrepreneurs, they feel an obligation. They feel an obligation to the people that were there until 2 o'clock in the morning with the cookie dough all over them. At the very beginning when things were really tough and they weren't really making a whole lot of money, they feel obligated to continue to elevate those people in a fast-growing organization, in any growing organization, even if it's not the right thing to do. What role did mentors or advisors or board members play in your ability to grow successfully?
Well, if you'll let me count authors in that, I'll say that virtually, other than what I got sort of growing up with my parents and then the amazing contributions of my wife, everything that I know is from books. So it's painted my worldview, and that's my first rule, if you want to be an entrepreneur, always be reading. If you're not just taking in new information, so I have to me, the most important mathematical equation in the world is II equals IO. So ideas in equal ideas out. And humans are synthesization machines. What makes you unique is not that you're thinking unique thoughts, it's that you're taking in all the thoughts that exist and reacting to them in a unique way. Sure. And so that's, if you can read all these books on business, if you can read the books on the mind and all leadership and all of that stuff, it is insanely powerful, that people take the time to condense 10, 20, 30 years of knowledge into something you can get in a week. It's unbelievable.
Well, it is unbelievable. And, I run into so many people, and we'll be talking about mentors. We'll be talking about building a board of advisors, whatever it takes to be around people that will help you to grow. And I'll run into people that say, well, I don't have that kind of network, or I don't know those people that can help to lift me up. But the answer is simple as picking up a book. The answer is, as simple as watching a tape. You want to learn how to be great on social media, just go watch Gary Vee videos, right? Go on Facebook. You want to be great at something like Microsoft. Go to Microsoft.com and download the white papers on how to build great companies. All that information is out there. It's around you. And so important that you surround yourself with those great ideas. I'm curious, we've talked about habits in the past. What have you found the role of habits to be for you personally and building great habits within an organization to lead to success?
Habits run my life. So I'm a huge believer in it. So by nature, I'm insanely lazy, and people never believe that because of the number of hours that I work. But it's only because I have structure around me in terms of what I allow myself to do. So I'm in bed every night by 9 p.m. I sleep with no alarm, but I usually get between 5 and 6 hours of sleep. I wake up, I have a 10-minute rule. If I've gotten at least 5 hours of sleep and I wake up, I'm out of bed in 10 minutes no matter what.
Wait, time. So I'm trying to do the math here. So if you go to bed at 9 o'clock and you sleep for 5 hours, you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Correct.
Is this right?
That is absolutely correct.
What the hell are you doing up at 2 o'clock in the morning?
I just wake up. So that's my natural rhythm is 5 to 6 hours. And I'll say that part of it is I'm excited about what I do. And so that's a big part of it. Excited or stressed, there are admittedly times where usually excitement gets me about 6 hours and stress gets me 5. But yeah, I wake up with I haven't used an alarm in over, 12 or 13 years. So, I'll set an emergency one if I have a meeting or something really early in the morning. But for the most part, I'm in the gym somewhere between 2:30 a.m. and 4. So, and then I'm out of the gym and I immediately meditate. Then I do something I call thinkitating. And then I move into reading, and then I go through my most important things to do. And that is a habit everyone should get into, to keep a list of the most important things for your business. And to go through that religiously before you start your day. I pathologically refuse to check email. And that's like, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who uses email as little as I do.
Wow.
So I think it's just an absolutely horrific form of communication. People use it as a reminder system. They use every excuse to pass it back to you. So anyway, I go into my list, and I'm trying to move things forward. So not check boxes, but actually accomplish something that's meaningful to the business. And then by that time, I've usually worked about 6-7 hours, and then the first employee shows up.
Man, that's awesome. Okay, so I have like a whole bunch of crazy questions. The first is, can we talk to the entrepreneur that's up at 2 o'clock in the morning, not necessarily because they got all the sleep that they needed or because they're totally inspired, but they're absolutely freaking out, right? They're the entrepreneur that's busting their tail. They're doing an awesome job in their business, but maybe, just maybe that week they're trying to figure out how to make payroll and feed their family at the same time. What questions, like what should that entrepreneur do at 2 o'clock in the morning to help empower them to wake up in the morning and be successful?
Well, they should sleep. Let's start with that. So the reason that I prioritize sleep, the reason that I work out, because I absolutely hate working out, by the way, and I despise sleep. The reason that I do it is to optimize cognitively. That's it. So if literally your life is on the line and you're trying to make sure that your family can eat, there's nothing more important than getting enough sleep to function at your optimum level. And then I would say, once you're done sleeping, meditate. The reason that you want to meditate is not for some woo-woo thing. It puts your brain in an alpha wave state. In an alpha wave state, you are more likely to make creative, unique connections, which is what's going to help you solve the big problem. Sure. So you get to the point where you're literally overthinking it. So if you think about getting into the zone, an athlete, it's when they stop thinking. And so there was a great quote from Bruce Lee.
It's a great point.
Great quote from Bruce Lee, and he said, kick until you don't think kick, you just kick. And what he's talking about is you want to practice something so much, so hard, that you get to the point where you can stop thinking about it and everything else just takes over. So I would say the guy that's up at 2 a.m., his problem isn't that he isn't thinking enough. His problem is that he's not getting into the zone. He's not able to relax enough to really have the creative thoughts that he's going to need to solve some of these problems and to have that insight. Like, you've got to trust that you've worked your ass off so much, you understand your business, you understand your customer, and by the way, if you don't, that's your real problem, right? So I'm making a whole host of assumptions that they understand their market, they understand their consumer, that they built a product that's real, that actually delivers value, that people are willing to exchange their money for that thing. Then if you've done all of that, then it really comes down to you've got to find that unique angle, that insight that's only going to come when your mind is quiet.
Wow. What's a think-a-tate?
So I resisted meditating for a very long time because it felt very feminine to me. And so I didn't do it. And then a Navy SEAL named Mark Devine came on my show, Impact Theory, and he basically said, look, dumbass, like, I'm a Navy SEAL. I'm telling you, meditating is going to help you. And so I thought, all right, this guy's pretty tough, so I think I'll give it a shot. And it was one of those, I wanted to punch myself in the mouth for not doing it sooner. Because, again, like my obsession with cognitive optimization, that's what meditation is. So meditation is quieting what I call the background radiation, the stress, the anxiety, the loops that you get in obsessing over something. It quiets all that down through simple breathing, right? So you're moving your body from the the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. So fight or flight, moving to rest and digest. And in that, you're literally shifting your brain into this new place. But you're supposed to quiet your mind. And so I was getting very frustrated that I was having these great ideas and I was supposed to like tamp them down and go back to like just breathing. So I thought, what if I actually scheduled time right after meditating to allow my mind to wander, to no longer try to control my thoughts, to start them on my biggest problem that I have, to continue my meditative breathing, but then let my mind wander, keep a computer next to me, and take notes. And 30% of the time is a total waste of time. Yeah. But 70% of the time, you get something between good and a blinding insight. So it is one of the most important things I do in my day.
You know, I picked up a new practice that I've been working on with my meditation, where when I finish the breathing and the concentration and I really try and clear and open my mind, I end with gratitude. And so I try and spend about 5 minutes where I'm just thinking of all the things that I'm thankful for. And what I found is in my life as an entrepreneur, or, you know, we all go through highs and lows and ups and downs and things like that. But when you focus on gratitude, what it does is it gets you to focus on what you have versus on what you don't have. And I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, when we get nervous, what happens is we focus on lack and all that other stuff. So I just found in my practice, including that gratitude moment has really been a big help for me. Before we go, I'd love to ask you about your new project and impact theory and what you guys are doing. Can you share with our audience about your new project?
Yeah, most definitely. So we really were successful at Quest because of social media, and that just played such a huge role. And that really got me obsessed with this notion of building communities and wanting to have impact. And part of just like my soul is there's two problems that I wanted to address with my life: the pandemic of the body and the pandemic of the mind. And Quest was meant to address the pandemic of the body, but we weren't. And originally I started the show actually at Quest, and just thought that it was amazing to bring together the body and the mind, but it was very clear that people saw us as a protein bar company, and it was a disconnect for them to think that we were also doing like the show on the mind, and like, what is that about? And so we'd had so much success at Quest, and I was just tremendously fortunate that I had the resources to spin the studio out that we had bought, that we built inside Quest, and spin it out into a standalone company focused on pulling people out of the matrix. Sure. So that's literally our mission statement, is to pull people out of the matrix, get them to get rid of the limiting beliefs that they have assimilated either through their family, their culture, whatever, get them to shuck that off and really realize their fullest potential. And so from a business model perspective, our business model is essentially Disney's business model. So our goal in a similar timeline to Disney would be to build a studio bigger than they are. So if you ask yourself the question, what would a 21st century movie studio look like? I think it would look very different than Disney does today, and that's the studio that we're building.
And how can people find you?
At Tom Bilyeu across all the socials in the known universe. My name is spelled a little bit weird. It's Bilyeu, but I'm hyperactive socially, and if you get a response from me, it's actually me. So yeah, hit it up, and then you can see the show Impact Theory, which is actually on YouTube. So
that's awesome. Well, Scott Duffy along here with Tom, brother. It's awesome to see you again. Thank you so much. Definitely. And we want to thank all of you for joining us. Again, we're here in Phoenix, Arizona, Meltdown in the Desert. If you have a chance, please come and see us. We want to thank all of our friends at Microsoft, at Ryan Tech, who are sponsoring this amazing program. And we want to thank Entrepreneur Magazine. If you haven't picked it up yet, pick up this month's issue of Entrepreneur Magazine. You got Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V on the cover, with an amazing article about how to build your social influence. Again, from all of us here at Microsoft and from Entrepreneur, thank you guys and have an awesome week.